again, friends, and welcome to Culture Crossroads. I am Andrew Southwick. He is R.C. Williams. She is Juliana Ormond, and we are so glad that you are with us here on today's program. And I got to tell you, as of yesterday, in terms of this production, this show is going to be a lot different. We had all kinds of different topics. We had all kinds of different guests, and it was going a different way. And then as we came together, and RC and Juliana, as we got online to record the program yesterday, the news came through that Charlie Kirk, TPUSA founder, one of the most prominent conservative voices, and particularly Christian conservative voices, actual believer conservative voices in America, was shot at an event in Utah. And of course, we would find out in short order that he was actually assassinated, and he was killed, age 31, if you can believe that. Leaves behind a wife, Erica, two very small kids who will now, as Melania Trump actually rightly said, they will now have stories about their father instead of memories with him. And it has sent a shockwave through the conservative movement, through Christians, through many people in America, and even seeing some of the response. Now again, there was the whole media, left-wing media coming out and trying to say it was Charlie Kirk's fault that he got killed and all that despicable stuff. There are those on social media celebrating his death because it's evil, and evil has taken over far too much of our culture. But there are also those who are seeing now, who are waking up saying, okay, it's time to get in the fight, and we're not going to, this darkness does not prevail. And so we thought, since Charlie Kirk gave his life for communicating the truth to you, to me, that the least we could do is dedicate this program to his memory and honoring the work that he did. We just want to kick off first with, how do you guys see the world today? A little bit differently than you did not even 24 hours ago.
I just find it so shocking, like surreal. We're sitting here in a moment of time, and we're just saying, we're trying to come together as a community of people, the body of Christ. And we have somebody, a prominent voice that was leading, doing such good. And then all of a sudden, in front of everybody, the world, right? He's killed on stage. We're trying to process all of this, right? We've had other people assassinated, like Martin Luther King, right? And change happens because of that. And I'm just praying. And my first prayer was, okay, this happened, but what's going to happen next? Like, there's this huge void that Charlie has now left. Who's going to come in? Who's going to help? Who's going to help continue the mantle that he was carrying, so that the people have what they need, so that the young people are hearing the truth? He was bringing biblical light to what these kids needed to hear, because the Bible was taken out of school. It was taken out of society. It was taken out of our language. We can't even say made in the USA anymore. And he was bringing all of that back. So now we sit here and we go, okay, as those that were following Charlie, we don't want this to be cultish or anything like that. But for those of us that were saying, he's doing good, and we want to uplift him and support him, what do we do next? Right? Mm-hmm. So we sit here and I feel like totally out of like I don't even know what's happening. Like, I can't believe that yesterday happened the way that it did, and I blame the media for what they did. I blame the church for not stepping up. I blame, us for not having done more. Where are we going with this? What is America how are we going to move forward from this?
Andrew, Charlie was killed living out his faith.
Yep.
The very things that he professed and that he did, he went into the places, he went in to the belly of the beast, into the den, because he knew he needed to bring the light. And the way that he dealt with people, if you've never seen him at an event like this or heard him speak, was very unique. And he was answering questions around shootings at the time that he was shot. Something that stuck with me yesterday, as we were doing our thing, we were on with the Cross Politic team. we also watched Steve Bannon's War Room yesterday evening, and Jack Posobiec said something very interesting because he was close with Charlie Kirk, and they actually had a podcast plan that they had to reschedule, which will now never happen. Jack said, if Charlie were here, he would say two things, right? He would say, one, get to work. Okay, what are you doing? Get to work. And two, he would say, next man up.
Yep.
And so there is a void. But if he were here with us today, he would look at us and say, get up, get to work. What are you waiting for?
Yep.
Next man up, right? Get to it, because the movement lives on. And we have a level of responsibility with this show, because for the last 2 years, we've shared with this audience insight and things to do. And we always would say, you need to take action.
That's right.
Well, if this is not a clarion call, I don't know what is, Andrew.
It is a very popular phrase going around right now, and it is true to a degree that, well, it is true in totality, because there are a few things that are true at the same time. One is that this is an act of political violence. I'd say it's an act of terrorism, because it is designed not just to silence one voice, but to intimidate many others. Right. Don't step out in this arena, or else. That's what these are. But we can't ignore that there is a double standard when it comes to this. I mean, you look at, what we remember the Summer of Love in 2020 and George Floyd, who died of a fentanyl overdose, who was not breathing, et cetera, et cetera. Even the medical examiner said he died of an overdose. The media treated that story, how remarkably different.
Yep.
It was, and in fact, the only thing that you were allowed to go outside of your house and do was go to a George Floyd memorial, right? Remember, because we were all locked down, and COVID didn't spread at George Floyd memorials. Of course, we know this. That's the science, right? But Charlie Kirk is murdered, assassinated, and you get MSNBC, one of the commentators there, who I believe now has been fired. And I'm not sure actually how Charlie Kirk would feel about that. We do have free speech, but again, it was reprehensible to say that, well, if he didn't say those things and didn't think those thoughts, then this bad thing wouldn't have happened to him, basically blaming Charlie Kirk for it. And as I mentioned in the open, you've got certain aspects of social media celebrating doing victory dances over his death. It's just despicable. You would not see that, not just where the you wouldn't see that not just where the people flipped, but I believe also it's where the ideology flipped, because the worldview and the political ideology and our fealty to whatever God of this world is having their cake and eating it too at the moment. That seems to be the dividing line in culture. How do you think lawmakers, let's start first just from let's get the political stuff out of the way. How should lawmakers be responding to this increasing hostility, and particularly toward conservatives, toward white people, toward Christians? We have, and the thing is, we have ample evidences of this just in the past few weeks. The Ukrainian refugee who was murdered in Charlotte on the train. We have the Catholic school shooting just a little bit ago, and you can keep turning the clock back and you'll find more and more. It's clearly a spiritual war. We're going to talk about the spiritual part in just a moment, but from the political side, what should lawmakers be responding to? And as you guys respond, I'm also bringing in James Stockey of Your American Flag Store. Let me see if I can actually bring him up here. Let's see, there he is. We'll bring him in as well. But RC and Juliana, first, your response. What should lawmakers be doing in response to this increasing war that is now manifesting itself violently and taking lives?
So, Andrew, I'm glad that you mentioned the spiritual part. Part of this, and I think what we see consistently, we saw this in the Minneapolis shooting, we saw this in the stabbing in Charlotte, and whatever comes out of the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I think the consistency we're going to see is that the mental illness is off the charts. And the fact that we're not doing enough to identify that and get those people help is a big indicator here, right? We've had this probably over the 2 years that we've done this show, where every time there's a shooting, when we reverse engineer and we get to the root of it, there's someone who is spiritually sick, but also mentally ill. And it seems like they were almost enabled to be out. You look at the situation in Charlotte, this guy's 14 times. And the person who released him the last time wasn't even a magistrate, wasn't even a judge. And so we get to the situation where how do you continue to miss all of these indicators? And from a political perspective, as lawmakers look at it, this is the question that we've posed to lawmakers. If you have the ability to come down at a needle's eye on an exchange between Andrew Southwick and R.C. Williams of $1 to ensure that you get your 55%, how is it that you miss every single indicator of a mass shooter, someone who is mentally ill, someone who has a propensity to do something? Either you are ignorant or complicit. And so what I would say to lawmakers is either you are ignorant or complicit. Either way, you need to take action to help to ensure that people who are spiritually sick and mentally ill, one, are able to get help that they need, and we are helping them along, and two, that they're in a position where they can't harm themselves or anybody else. This isn't a gun issue. They keep saying, oh, firearms, that's not the issue, right? The operator is the issue. And until we get real about that, this isn't going to change.
And let's just note the fact that under Ronald Reagan, they closed like so many of the insane asylums. So instead of these mentally ill people being in the asylum getting the help that they need, they're in jails. And we've got wardens that are trying to take care of them, but they're mentally ill and they need, actual help. So why are the politicians not, helping these people and putting them where they need to be? And I don't mean, sweeping away and grabbing everybody, but those that really have mental issues need help.
It should be noted here, too, we are producing this episode on Thursday. It's going to air on Sunday. So there are still there's likely still news that will come out over the next couple of days. Now, there were some reports that they had arrested a shooter, then they didn't, then they did, then they didn't. That went back and forth all yesterday afternoon and evening into the night. Today,
crazy.
It looks like what we see is, we still don't know who or where or what. I will say this, I don't want to speculate because I'm not a law enforcement officer. I don't understand tactical this, tactical that. But there are some questions I would have. Apparently, there was only one shot fired. And there are estimates that it was 200 yards away or somewhere in there between 200 and 300 yards away right now. Again, some of this could change by Sunday. This is what we have right now as of this production. Well, just like the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt on President Trump, how did someone know that was the place they should be to do this? How did they know that building was going to be empty? I mean, if somebody just pulls out a weapon in the middle of a crowd, people are going to react. It's not like they just walked in there and found a perch on top of a telephone pole and pulled the shot. Not only that, but if it's one shot, it was a kill shot. You got to think somebody knows how to shoot to do that, because they have to take into account what the wind factor and everything else and the angle, and how do they know that was the right angle to be in? I mean, there's so many questions like that. And because my concern is what I think happens with a lot of these, and and I'm not trying to have my foil hat on, but if we're going to face this evil, we have to call it for what it is, and we need honest truth. And we haven't really had a great record of honesty coming from our leaders in this country in different facets. And particularly when it comes to FBI and CIA and so on and so forth. My concern is that we're going to come out and say, well, here's another lone wolf, and it's all good. We'll wipe our hands of it. And that lone wolf will be prosecuted and put in prison, and they probably should be. But at some point, it's just like the Butler. How does a math club kid get past all the security and get into that spot in Butler in the right place at the precise angle where there's nothing blocking the line of sight? I mean, how does this shooter know that this is the school and this is the time and this is the place and this is the place I should be? How do you do that on your own? How do you do that as a lone wolf? How do you do that and especially if you're mentally ill? Do you put those things together? I'm not trying to assert anything that isn't there, but those are questions that I think deserve answers, because because after these events, we always hear it was a lone wolf. They were mentally ill. Don't worry about it. It's over.
But where's the FBI, the CIA, and everybody else that's pulling the strings in the background? We have to question it.
And it keeps happening, and it keeps happening a certain way to a certain target of person.
Yep.
Over and over and over and over and over again. All right, I'm gonna leave that here. James Stock, you want to bring you in here. You have a couple of interesting ties with Charlie Kirk, and I want to get that story. You're welcome to comment if you want to comment on our conversation we were just having. But then I'd love for you to tell to share with us your ties with Charlie Kirk. And the first question I asked RC and Juliana was, how are you seeing the world differently today than you did less than 24 hours ago? I would pose the same question to you as well. So James, welcome to the program, and the floor is yours.
Thanks for having me back on, Andrew. So I never actually talked directly with Charlie. I've talked with his producers, and we have a lot of mutual friends over at RAV. And just to back up a little bit, to correct, we do have some more information, and it's been confirmed. They do have a murder weapon. It's been found in the woods, adjacent to what looks like where he was. I think there's video, you guys have probably seen it, of the guy in the prone position up on a roof about 170 yards away. Immediately after the shots, there are videos now being released of him running across the roof to his escape, I guess. He disappeared into the woods behind it. They have found the murder weapon. They have a palm print on it, and they have a prints in the roof where he was that they're analyzing and getting more data from. So now that they have the weapon and they have palm print, they'll be able to hopefully trace that weapon back to the owner and possibly the assailant. But again, we don't know. That weapon could have been borrowed, could have been stolen. Who knows? So they're tracking that stuff down. My relationship with Charlie, I wouldn't say that I really have a relationship with him, besides that he knew what had happened to us. He'd been following our story for a long time. There'd been several times that we were going to be going on to his show. We were scheduled to go on his show next week to make a couple announcements. And so he gave away our flags on his show, which was, an honor to have someone, like that. We've made a few of the flags that you have right there. We made for Rob Sig and Charlie, and a couple of those were given away to his audience. We actually have one in my shop right now that was one that we're going to be giving away next week on his show. It's kind of hard to kind of walk by it and look at it. When you make something like that, we make everything by hand. My wife does the painting by hand. So when we're doing it for a specific person, they're constantly on our mind. It becomes kind of, this sounds odd, but it's kind of an intimate process when you get to know somebody and you're making something that that they're going to love, that they chose. And then more so when they like it so much that they're going to purchase these things and then give them away to other people. So it was an honor to have, what little relationship I had with him, which I wouldn't even call really a relationship, encounters that I had with him. It was an honor. I was looking forward to building a relationship over the coming years. And as our story developed and our documentary is told, that was when I think that relationship was going to probably have the opportunity to really turn into something very special. You asked how life has changed in the last 24 hours. Just on your show the other day that we recorded, I kind of teased that, we were dipping our toe. There's an open Senate seat coming up here in Tennessee, and I've been dipping my toe in it, kind of figure out, if it'd be a good fit for me. I'm from California, so Tennesseans might not go so well. They might think that I'm on the wrong team. So I've been trying to get the word out among my community, and they know it now. They've seen us on TV. They understand my values, and I've been coming out real hard on my values. So what happened yesterday solidified I'm going to be running for Senate now. I think that what's going to happen with Charlie passing or being assassinated, let's not sugarcoat it and make it nice. With him being assassinated, I think that his movement is only going to grow. I'm praying that it does. And I think that what I want to do, how it's motivating me to, quit tinkering with the idea that, is Tennessee ready for me? Is time right for someone like me? I'm not exactly a, I don't know. I don't need the decorum. I believe that there's a time and a place that for civility and decorum and being polite. I don't think that we're there. I think we passed that. I think we passed it a while ago, but yesterday solidified that we are at some kind of cold civil war. And while if we want to see it this way or not, everyone can make up their own mind where we're at, but they're killing us. And
yeah, I would say, I would argue that it's a hot civil war because of what you just said. They're killing us. I think, and I think it's been a removal of God from culture over a period of decades, really starting probably in earnest with the progressive era really moving into the White House with Woodrow Wilson back at the turn of the 20th century. And then seeing it culturally from the 60s on with getting prayer out of schools, getting God out of schools, covering up the Ten Commandments in the courthouse, getting God out of the public square, on and on. And the thing is, when you remove God, who is our creator, you also remove then the value, the purpose, the worth of humanity. And when it's so easy for us to kill people in the womb, for example, which we do by the tens and hundreds of millions, and we've created an industry out of that. Well, what's the difference in killing somebody outside of the womb, especially when there's no purpose? And if you believe the evolutionary progressive theory, we're just an accident. We're a blob of random cells. There's no real purpose or point. You have no intrinsic value or worth unless you have a value or worth to me for my purpose at that particular time. Then you have a value that I can use. Now I'll protect you, which is why we have all these protected political classes, because our political betters use those to consolidate power for themselves. And when they are finally done using them, they move on. It's actually a lot like all the alien movies that we see where the aliens come to Earth and they want to harvest our resources and bleed us dry. Well, that's what our leaders have been doing to us for a century now, if not more, and certainly in other civilizations. But I think this is a hot war. And I'm not saying that to say we need to get on the streets and respond in kind. I do not actually think that's the way to do this, because it's also a spiritual war at its core. If this were just and even the term political assassination. Okay, yes, Charlie Kirk was in politics. That's true. That's true. But the one who prowls like a roaring lion, seeking those who he might devour, is Satan. Satan's a spirit, an angel, demon, fallen angel. And him and the other fallen angels, the demons. When it comes to murder, that's a spiritual war. When it comes to because politics is ultimately politics. But murder, the taking of a life, that's a good idea. That is spiritual. That is demonic captivity. And the spiritual warriors on earth are the church. And unfortunately, at the same time that we have allowed God to be out of the schools, out of the courthouses, out of the hospitals, and we can't talk about them on television, and we've allowed all these things to happen, it has created this giant vacuum into which the spirit of the age now fills. And now and we have this age of outrage. There is no hope. There is no forgiveness. Everything is a zero-sum game. You have no value. And so if you upset my delicate sensibilities, well, basically then I can kill you. And this is what we are seeing. And we are seeing this over and over and over again. I guess I'll give the floor back to you. Is there anything else you would like to add to this conversation? And I would like to know what do you think the call is now for Christians? And yes, for conservatives, in terms of our boldness in sharing truth, because one of the questions actually that Juliana asked at the top of the show, who's going to come after? Who's the next man up, right? Well, I wonder if it's not just one. I wonder if it's more of us that need the courage and the boldness. What's your thought on that?
Well, I don't think that I don't think that it's even a remote possibility that any one person could replace Charlie Kirk. I don't think that that's possible. It's rare that someone that really has biblical scripture on the tip of his tongue the way that he did. It's rare that someone has the Constitution and the Federalist Papers and all of that knowledge on the tip of his tongue. And for a single person to have all that knowledge on the tip of his tongue the way that he did, that I've never seen it. So I don't believe that Charlie can be replaced. But the idea that thousands of people could replace him, I do agree with that. And I think that that's one of the reasons that I'm now inspired to kind of go to the next level and quit playing with this idea of running for Senate. But I think that the message that we have to go away with is that, one, violence is always the last answer. And two, that we meet our adversaries with the same energy that we're met with. So if people want to talk, let's talk, and let's keep it civil, and let's be respectful. But the moment they break from that civility, we have the upper hand. We have the higher ground. We have to remind them that there's two major atrocities that have taken place in our society in the last 49 years. That's slavery and abortion. And Democrats are responsible for both. Not only are they responsible, but they fought and died and killed to keep slaves, to own other people. So while they're not killing us for not wanting abortion, they are killing innocent lives. The mother's womb is supposed to be the absolute most protected and safe place that God ever created. And it's been weaponized. So if you look back at Margaret Sanger, there's plenty of pictures of her doing speeches at KKK rallies. We know what her ambitions were. It was to take away all minorities and those with mental defects. So this is the nature of the Democrats, and they can try to spin it all that they want, but we have the higher moral ground, and we need to make sure that anytime that we get into these discussions, these debates, these conversations, we make sure that they understand that that is our position. That is not that they're beneath us, but their morality is beneath us. Another thing is that over the last 30 years, I asked my grandmother about 20 years ago, what did you guys used to talk about at the dinner table? And they used to talk about politics and religion. And over the last 20 years, that has somehow we've been convinced, indoctrinated, and brainwashed to believe that that is somehow toxic, that is taboo, that we don't talk about it. So these subtle things, I was explaining to my kids last night that the way that the liberals work is they will befriend you, they'll compliment you, they sneak in like a snake. And then they'll introduce a tiny idea, just a taste of their ideological perspective. And they'll read your body language. And if you're a little bit off guard, they back off. And then they'll keep on grooming you until they don't get a reaction from you. And as soon as you don't get a reaction, then they go to the next step and they ratchet it up. And within 6 months to a year, and in our school system, within 12 years, these kids are completely and totally brainwashed. They don't think that abortion is murder. They don't think that it's killing a human being. It's just a lump of cells. Everything that America does is evil and bad. Everything that Hamas does is justified. So, Andrew, you touched on it, that the way that they have spun everything up, that's what we have. We can't let them finish sentences. We can't let them articulate these ideas. Because what they're doing is they're grooming, not just they're trying to convince us, but they're also trying to, anybody that's listening, they're grooming them to think that their thought process is somehow not just okay and that they have a good argument, but it's righteous. And that is where we have to start the fight, mainly with our young kids. But we cannot give these people an inch to put out these toxic ideas that anything that they say, I challenged several people yesterday. Tell me the last Republican that assassinated someone. I'm not saying that they're not there. There definitely are. There's evil people that walk in every type of shoe. But in recent times, with this recent ratcheting up of the rhetoric that Hitler, Nazis, fascists, racist, all of these things, these are dog whistles. And when they start doing it and we don't respond and we don't push back, or when they're coming at us hard and we push back soft, this isn't working. We've been trying this gentle, be conservative, be respectful. We've tried it. It doesn't work. So the time of that is over. And what we need to do is what I started with. We need to meet these people with the same energy that they're meeting us. If you go to a restaurant and you have a Trump hat on and they flick it off and they invade your space, don't sit there. Put them on their back. That's where we're at. That's where I believe that we're at. I think that if we should all keep our hands to ourselves. I'm not advocating for any type of aggression to start, but when we're met with aggression, we cannot sit back and let it happen. It's emboldening them. That's why when they do a little flick of the hat, well, then the next day they actually push. After that, it turns into something else to where they're spitting on you. It just keeps on escalating to the point where they've tried to kill our well, at the time, not president, but our now president twice. And yesterday they took out absolutely the most influential mind that has ever been able to persuade and encourage and inspire young people. No person that has ever been in politics in America or in clergy even in America has ever influenced and convinced young minds that being conservative and being Christian is good and it's right and it's just, and we have the higher ground. Nobody's ever done it like Charlie Kirk. So that will be his legacy. I think every single one of us needs to take part in promoting his legacy to make sure that it doesn't die. And every single person out there needs to know that whatever little thing I don't care if it's a single post on social media that says this has got to stop. Everything that we do needs to happen. Nobody can sit down anymore. My dad always told me that you don't always have to stand tall in your life, but you've got to stand up. And that's where we're at now. We have to stand up, and there's going to be times where we have to stand tall.
Yeah. James Stockey, YourAmericanFlagStore.com. That's where people can go if they want to find you, your work there. Thank you for giving us a few minutes of your time today on this episode. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks, Andrew. And nice meeting the two of you. And I hope maybe we can get on here again and actually be introduced. But thanks, Andrew. I appreciate your time.
Amen.
Take care, James.
All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Charlie Kirk in his own words, and we need to find some hope in this. I know there's a lot of darkness, but light always dispels the darkness. John 1:5, it's how we end every program. We're going to find that as well next in Culture Crossroads.
Are your health issues holding you back from being the very best version of yourself? Maybe you've put on a few pounds and your clothes are a little too tight, so you don't speak up as much as you should. Maybe you want to go out with your friends, but you're always looking for a restroom. Or maybe you're just too tired to do any of these things at all and exhausted at the end of your day. I'm Dr. Molly James, founder of James Clinic, and we help patients navigate these issues all the time and really get back to feeling their best. Check us out today at jamesclinic.com.
And welcome back to Culture Crossroads. We are dedicating this program to the memory and celebration of the work that God did through Charlie Kirk and Charlie Kirk's ministry. Really is what it is. Turning Point USA, yes, is civically involved, but it is a ministry. And Charlie, not too long ago, on his show, and this also aired on, you heard James Stock, you mentioned RAV, that's Real America's Voice. It's a different network. I'm not afraid to talk about it, though. On his Charlie Kirk show, after a shooting in Minneapolis, where 2 kids were murdered in a school shooting, he answered a viewer question, effectively asking, how can you believe in God after all these shootings? Now, well, you know what? I'm not even going to say anything else. We need Charlie in his own words. Let's hear him. Here's Charlie's response to that, and then we'll respond not only to what Charlie said, but maybe how we can apply this and how Charlie might have wanted us to apply this. Let's check this out.
See, Charlie, this is why I can't believe in God. How could you believe in God after this? It's a very important question. I don't want to be immediately dismissive. So let's first go to what we as Christians or Jews, but what ethical monotheists, we have the problem of evil. Atheists have evil no problem. You see, on the atheist side, they can't say that evil actually exists because without God, if God does not exist, then we are nothing more than just a clump of cells, and there is no such thing as evil. You only know something is evil if you have good to compare it to. You only know something is right because you have a standard of right. For example, if I have a piece of paper and I draw a crooked line. So let's just see here. I wish I had a Sharpie here. Maybe I do. Yeah, I do. And I have a crooked line. Okay, here's my crooked line. How great is that? Put it in the Louvre. How do you know this line is crooked? How do you know? It was just a line, right? But you immediately look at it, you say, that's a crooked, squiggly line. Only because in your mind, you know what a straight line is. So because there you see a crooked line, you're immediately comparing it to the contrast of a perfect straight line. The same happens in morality and ethics. We only know that something is evil and wrong because we have a transcendent standard to compare it to. If you do not believe in God, it is not right and wrong. It's nothing more than preferences. Now, in my theology, I believe that you're able to choose. Other Christians do not have the belief as much in free will. They sort of do. It's hotly debated. I do believe that we have agency. We have the ability to choose. We have free will. And that individual woke up with the free will and used that free will to murder 2 kids. That's evil. And we know it's evil because we are appealing towards a transcendent truth standard. And this is a principle also shared by Jews and Christians alike. But also understand this, and I got this from Dennis Prager. We as Christians or Jews, we have to explain the problem of evil. We also have to explain natural disasters. That's a toughie. Atheists, they have to explain everything else. If you are out there and you look at this and you are angry and you are mad and you are upset at this horrific act of evil, I would just say, how do you know it's evil? By what standard do you know is it evil? And you know it because you're appealing to Christian ethics or Jewish ethics or Judeo-Christian ethics in that regard. Secondly, the atheist has to explain everything else around us. They have to explain life. They have to explain the longest sentence ever recorded, which is DNA. They have to explain the fine-tuning of the universe. They have to explain why the earth exists. They have to explain physics. They have to explain the laws of reason. They have to explain the law of thermodynamics. They have to explain it all, and they have to say, oh, it's all just an act of randomness. But if it's all just an act of randomness, then morality is just random. And isn't it interesting that this shooter, we know nothing about the shooter except early 20s, and I'm sure this guy is or gal, but likely a gal, as sick, twisted, awful, demonic as possible. It's a guy, got it. this guy who is now dead, who could have killed a lot more, was only expressing an existential emptiness. Why was this guy drawn to a church to murder young people at Mass? And so while that email is well received, Charlie, how could you believe in God after this? The question that I would respond is, well, how can you not believe in a God that created the heavens and the earth? The problem of evil has well outdated every single it's predated almost every single commentator. But if you don't believe in God, then you say evil's no problem. But if you are upset with it, you actually are implying that you believe in God. You might be angry at God. You might be wrestling with God. You might be mad at God. You might think that God is unjust. That's a completely different thing than not believing in God. In fact, we're called to wrestle with God. It's very normal in the Old Testament for people to cry out to God in disgust or anger. The problem of evil is one that we can only wrestle with because of God and our belief in God. And remember, Christianity is the answer to the problem of evil. There would be no need for Jesus to sacrifice himself for us if we had never sinned, if we had not contaminated this earth. Christ's work will ultimately fix all of the wrongs. God created a good world. In the beginning, Bereshit, he says, God created the heavens and the earth. Evil was not part of God's original design, but entered through human rebellion, as it says in Genesis 3. The source of evil is human rebellion. In Romans 5:12, very clearly Paul writes this in what is known as the believer's constitution, quote, "Therefore, just as sin came into the world through one man, and death through sin, and so death spread to all men because all sinned." Now, God does have sovereignty over evil. Evil exists, but it's not outside of God's control. He can overrule and redeem it. At times, he allows it to happen. For example, in Genesis 50:20, one of my favorite verses, what the enemy went for evil, God will use it for good. The book of Job, which is actually the oldest book of the Bible, the first book ever written. It was a book written actually before Genesis. We know that Satan is active, yet God sets the boundaries. This shows that while evil is very real, God bends it towards his perfect purposes. The cross is God's answer to evil, and this is why Christianity matters. The cross is the answer to evil. Atheists have no answer to evil. We have an answer to evil. And I don't want to discount the pain, the mystery, and the confusion that you might have around evil. But understand, it's because you know what is good, you're only even able to articulate what is evil. The atheist dilemma is that if we're nothing more than just a bunch of particles and chemicals that have accidentally evolved over millions of years, what is your morality? It must come through revelation above reason. The problem should be reframed. The question is, what should not be, why does evil exist? Instead, it should be, what has God done about it? And the cross is the answer to that.
Not why does evil exist, but what has God done about it? And the cross is the answer. You know, as I listen to that, it is interesting. When people who are influential and who have had an influence in your life, when they die, it's interesting how their words echo a little bit differently, isn't it? Mm-hmm. And you can even hear him articulating not just the problem of evil, but the purpose and value of life that God creates, and the purpose and value of the work that God has created in advance, God has prepared in advance for you and I to do. And that same truth applied to Charlie in his life, in his work. And his life had meaning, his death will have meaning. I would suggest to you that likely his legacy and impact will be greater now than even in his lifetime. And I'm not saying it's good that he died at all, but I'm saying that's how God does Genesis 50:20 and takes what is evil and uses it for good. Is that he can reach far more now and probably will, and he'll inspire more now and will. And because of how God will use what he did, there are people today who are just hearing of Charlie Kirk for the first time. And they're going to wonder what he said and what he did and why was he killed? Why did somebody shoot him? And some of them are going to see these speeches and watch old episodes of his show. And they're going to say, why would you kill somebody for that? And they'll say, well, wait a minute, that's I believe that. I need to take that message out. That's it's really, and I don't say that lightly because my goodness, if I was in the shoes of his family, you're not even you don't even know where you are today. And you can imagine part of our responsibility as believers, we mourn with those who mourn as well. And we certainly are. But none of this is in vain. And I think that as believers and as conservatives, really the only way now that we dishonor or disrespect what he did is if we continue to sit by and wait for the next person to go to the places we have so far refused to go to, and
Correct.
to say the things that we're afraid to say.
Correct.
It's our turn now. He gave his life. He gave his life, saying this, pointing, this is the way. And friends, this is the way. What's your reaction?
I just want to say the first thing that I prayed for when we prayed yesterday, hearing that he had passed, or not knowing if he had passed, but he had been shot, was that that Father uses this situation to further his efforts and what he wants to have done. And that those of us that have tools and ways of doing things that are going to stand now in the gap that Charlie has now created because he's no longer with us. So what's now going to happen, and how is the church going to come in, and how are we going to respond to this, and what's going to happen next? I just pray that, this has not been done in vain, and that the church comes together under the banner of, we now lost Charlie, we lost our voice, and now we need to pick up that banner and continue with the voice and say, you know what, we are the church. He was leading the church, and now the church has something that we need to be doing.
Andrew, you notice that in Charlie's answer, it wasn't endless platitudes. He wasn't preaching a sermon. He was actually doing what young people in particular, desire. He was answering the question and providing the proper context to help someone to think
That's right.
about why they feel the way that they feel. This is so important, and this is one of the things you do not want to get lost in all of this, is what a great job he did of actually answering the question instead of dancing around it, which seems to be incredibly popular these days. In a sea of popularity like that, Charlie did what he was called to do. Address the question head on, provide the context, help someone to think about what they're doing. And for as much as was spewed on social media yesterday, the stories from young people who changed their lives because they encountered a Charlie Kirk video were also off the charts, and how it changed them and help them to understand and give context and think when they could not get it from the people that they would otherwise trust to provide it to them. We can't lose that in this movement. That's what he would have said when I mentioned earlier in the show, what are you doing? Get to work and next man up. That's what he means.
Because Charlie, there are people who reached out to us and said, okay, you've created the Watchmen Action Workbook. Can you make that for the younger guys? Can you make that for the high school and college students? They were that active in saying, what other tools are out there? So when they found us, they were all like, we need you. They were pulling the body of Christ together and saying, we collectively can do what we're capable of doing. We need to stop looking to the government to do what we need to do, in our own community. I have so much respect for what they have done, for what Rav has done. This is what we're supposed to be doing. This is what the church is supposed to be doing.
Yeah. And again, we also have to thank, Beck News here and for giving us this platform and allowing us to speak as freely and openly as we have so far on this program. There are very few places where you can do that. And the thing with Charlie Kirk is, he would go to the places where you specifically can't. But he was just there to have a conversation with people. And if you watch, you can see his videos of him debating with students in open air. And he's always respectful. He's not there to be gotcha. But what he does and what he did, and I think it's one of the things that we can learn from, is he actually led them through the logical fallacies of their own thought processes. To say, now, if you believe this, tell me why you believe that. That's really, why do you believe that? What is the support? How does that link up? How does that, how does that connect? How does that reconcile? How does one thought reconcile with another? And when you come to the end of it, you find that, if you're rejecting God, which is what a lot of the people debating him were doing, and maybe still do, you cannot connect those dots. You can't connect why good is good and why evil is evil and why this is wrong and that is right. There's no answer for those things. There's no evolutionary answer for why we love, for why we laugh, why we feel pain, why we care. That didn't evolve out of a primordial ooze. Those are part of our image of God. And everyone, whether you reject God or not, is created in the image of God. The question is,
that's right,
we receive him and become his child. I'm deciding, we have about 7 minutes. Let me do this. I had a couple of videos I'm looking at. There's one that I wanted to share, that I will share. Last night, I was looking for a way to kind of put together a little tribute memoriam video of Charlie Kirk, but to show a different side, because clearly mostly what people are going to see is him debating, him giving speeches, him on his show. But when he is asked what are the things that matter to him most, it's God, it's his family. And so I wanted to show more of that side if I could. And it was difficult, one of the hardest videos I've ever put together, because, there are a couple connections on this, I think, that a lot of people, particularly in conservative media, are putting together. Number one, that we're now seeing what it means to carry our cross. It's not just a minor inconvenience. You're going out in front of people that hate you and that hate your message and that want to kill you because of it. And who will kill you if they have the opportunity? That's not a small call for any of us. And so that's frightening, but it's not an excuse to stop either, is it? And then also as a husband and a father, I think of his wife, Erica, and their kids. Their kids are so little, and he was 31. I'm 45. God's been so generous with me and giving me time with my family and my kids that I've already had. And the thing that I think about, not so much as my own death, but if God were to call me home, what of my kids? What of my wife? That's my concern. I think that's a lot of our concerns, right? And so it hits you in that way too. And one of the clips you're going to see in this video is, and all the pictures and video in this montage are from his Instagram page, because that's the place where I can find the most family stuff about him. And but one of them is from August 23rd, just a couple of weeks ago, which was his daughter's birthday. And he took her out shopping for a birthday present. And you'll see that video in this. So let's take a look at it, and then we'll come back with some final thoughts.
Well, I just really want to pray a hedge of protection around all of us that are in the fight along with Charlie. You know, my son is a gunsmith and a weapons trainer. He walked in yesterday and started talking about us needing body armor and, you know, what's going to happen with us. And that goes for all the people that are out there in the fight and saying, you know, we're taking back our country. The church should be the center of what's happening. And we're all going to honor Charlie for what he did. Right? Because it's our time to step into that vacuum and say, we're not going to let this just die. We're going to now pick up that mantle and do what we're supposed to be doing.
Amen.
Amen. We'd like to thank you for being with us on this episode of Culture Crossroads. For James Stockey, R.C. Williams, Juliana Ormond, and Andrew Southwick. Remember, it's the truth that sets us free, and the truth will keep you free. Until next time, so long. John 1:5.
Let's be frank, it's a pain to be without your vehicle after an accident. That's why you should take it to Jerome's Collision Center. Our shop is supersized and we have the qualified staff to fill it up and work on your vehicle, step by step, piece by piece, in crazy fast time without sacrificing quality. When you need us, we'll turn your bad experience into a good one. We're Jerome's Collision Center and we're the best at what we do.
Are your health issues holding you back from being the very best version of yourself? Maybe you've put on a few pounds and your clothes are a little too tight so you don't speak up as much as you should. Maybe you want to go out with your friends but you're always looking for a restroom. Or maybe you're just too tired to do any of these things at all and exhausted at the end of your day. I'm Dr. Molly James, founder of James Clinic, and we help patients navigate these issues all the time and really get back to feeling their best. Check us out today at jamesclinic.com.
Let the Jousting Lemur Wine Bar and Restaurant take you on a tour of the best vineyards without leaving downtown Bismarck. Sample wines from around the world, find new favorites, discover perfect pairings, and learn from a certified sommelier. Join our wine club and really take your wine knowledge up a notch. Wine may be our specialty, but you'll also find fresh beer, outstanding food, and the perfect atmosphere to host your next special event. Find the Jousting Lemur on Main in Bismarck.